Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Seal of Approval. Joining us this week, as always, is my trusty Scrump. How are you?
You make it sound like I'm some sort of object of furniture or some kind of pet.
Yes.
I am your trusty Scrump, yes. I'm actually an ethereal being made up, like I'm like a stitch to a blanket. I'm just like a personality made up of shitposts.
You're literally just the star. You don't actually have like a physical.
I don't have a physical form. I'm like TAI. I'm stitched together from racial epithets and memes. That's how I function. But yes, I'm doing pretty well, thank you.
Can I just point out, like, confusion? That's not the right one. Confusion and delay. It was only a minute. Like, this is not AA style. Delayed by half an hour.
Your viewers are much more demanding. You know, they're not used to the degree of lateness that we get over on the old AA's channel.
Old unpopular opinions. And speaking of unpopular opinions, we have joining us tonight for the first time AA's. You are pretty much the co-host of Unpopular Opinions now, aren't you?
I suppose so.
Well, you're like the new Britisher.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
You're going to start off by insulting me that early.
Are you the new host of Unpopular? Are you the new host then?
Well, yes, I am the new Britisher.
You know what the worst thing is? Sorry, the weird tangent. The only I thought like British Knight was the Britisher for like a long time. I think it must have been at least a year before I realized that he wasn't actually the Britisher. And I completely just amalgamated those two into one person.
I think it's that the avatars that they use are very similar art style as well.
Yep,
it's just a white guy dressed up with some sort of period dress at various points within British history. But anyway, we've got Mr. D on here for the first time because this is the special seal of approval. So I want to kind of shake things up a little bit on here because normally what we talk about week in, week out is what's going on in the news. I mean, that's what we've done now for nearly a year. We've actually been doing the show for nearly a year now, which is kind of a little bit mad. But at the same time, I don't just want it to be fixated on what's happening in the news every week, because some weeks there's literally nothing going on. Like there's nothing worth talking about. And those are usually the weeks where we've had to kind of give it a miss. Because there's no point in just kind of talking about like Brexit or the Democrats doing the same shit day in, day out. You know, so this week, to kind of testing, you know, kind of like a taster, as it were, for like for the way in which the seal of approval could go. Let me introduce to everyone some of our good friends. And now you should all know who these are. They're the Gourmet Seals.
Ah, yes, the Gourmet Seals.
Bringing a smorgasbord of news and delectable delicacies, because you can see
they make you go.
They look
like
absolutely delicious, Race.
So, as you can see, there's 3 seals with various topics that have happened in the news over the last week. Some of which may be, you know, more well known than others, like Prince Philip, which is more just there because it would just be nice to kind of pay tribute to the man. But also, you know, there's the George Floyd seal, the wholesome George Floyd seal there, kind of like close to the ground at the front. And then
I'm not going anywhere near anything related to that.
I know it is kind of a bit sketchy waters there, but screw it, we'll do it. And we also have the loofah seal. The loofah seal is there just to, you know, just because people might have known what was going on with the BBC today. They might not, but that might be an interesting one to touch on. But we also have a bit more back from the front, but it's the Gourmet seal. And so if you follow me on social media, you will no doubt be aware that one of the things that I'm really into is my cooking. And like I do a lot of home cooking from scratch. I like to make my own recipes. It's something which I really, especially got into over the last year with lockdown, and actually kind of learning to appreciate the full value of spending that extra money and getting actual good ingredients rather than just going to Tesco and buying shit from there, if you know what I mean. And so I invited John D on here because Mr. D used to be a chef. He's very good with his food and has actually made lots of recipes himself. So if you watched Unpopular Opinions, you probably come across his recipes before. Scrump tells me he used to be a chef as well.
I was once a chef in that I worked in a kitchen that was short of chefs as a kitchen porter. So I kind of got press ganged into being a chef, basically.
Yeah, but you know, when you said that to me before, you made it sound like, oh yeah, I used to be a chef.
Well, I did.
It's like, well, chef. I was a chef when they were like short.
I was conscripted into being a chef.
Nobody else available.
Yeah, I was a backup chef, unironically.
Where were you a chef at then?
Just in a local bistro, really, kind of a local restaurant. I didn't, I didn't have a glamorous chef's career, but I technically was a chef for a while.
For a second, I thought you were going to say it was something like Weatherspoons or Frankie and Benny's.
Oh no! It was, we were cooking proper food.
So just notice this. So, Mr. D, are you releasing a cookbook?
No, not the cookbook again. This is a long-running joke on Popular Opinions that I am going to produce some sort of based and right-wing cookery book, and I have no idea. I have no idea what that would even mean. I mean, something about roasted Marxists or something. I don't know.
Conservative chili.
Yeah. yeah, Tory taters.
Tory taters.
But no, I mean, I don't have any immediate plans. I'm quite happy to write up my long-winded recipes and put them on Twitter for people to ignore. But yes, there is constant pressure to produce some sort of cookery book, and I don't know. Someday I may give in, but for now it's just.
I don't know. With current conditions how they are, you should do a cookbook on how to make 3,000 dishes with dried rice and beans.
tins of beans and
you've got to make this meal with dried ingredients and what's in an MRE. The bunker cookbook or something. I don't know.
But yes, clear out your bunker.
The Boogaloo bunker cookbook. There we go. We've already been demonetized.
So, but just before we go into the seals and we select our seal, there is something else that I normally seal of approval. I don't like this show to be talking about the tranners and trans drama kind of thing, because I want to keep that very separate, because then I can at least say, look, I don't always go on about this stuff. I talk about everything else going on in the world. But sometimes there are things which sometimes I do kind of need to comment on the state of the trans.
The absolute state, yes.
Absolute fucking state of trans and the trans activism. And so I just want to share this because this is relevant to my channel. So this is something which I kind of became aware of this morning, really, because I've just seen I saw Mark's tweet about it. So some of you might remember this YouTuber here, Cops Hate Mo, who actually came on my channel over a year ago, I think, at this point. She's non-binary. I'm using female pronouns now, and I'll go into why later on. And at the time was kind of reasonable and quite respectable. We had strong disagreements, but I kind of felt, that's fine. Agree to disagree so long as you're reasonable. But then Mo got involved with the more kind of radical side of trans YouTube and the trans personalities that are all on social media. So someone who last year was kind of calm and collected is now saying shit like this. Marcus is a very special kind of terrible. The kind of terrible that makes me want to give up pacifism just so I can curb stomp him in particular. So people who might not know who Marcus is, Marcus also is known as the offensive tranny. He's been on one of the earlier episodes of Seal of Approval. He's a nice guy. He lives in Denmark. I think that's where the Danish come from. But like he's a conservative trans guy. He's done like he has like a YouTube channel. He's like, I think his Instagram account is probably his most popular one. But he's just a conservative trans person who has views that Mo disagrees with. And so for that, she wants to, makes this comment of like, oh, I just want to curb stomp him. And when called out on it, this is how she responds. And this is really telling. It's funny that people will get so mad at little 5.5 me joking about curb stomping someone. I've said multiple times, I'm a pacifist. I'd never actually hurt anyone, but bigots annoy me, so I'll joke about it. I thought we were the snowflakes. Stop being so sensitive and take a joke, Lemau. And then they had another thing about curb stomping might kill you, but anti-trans legislation encouraged by the TERF rhetoric you spread could kill thousands. That's aimed at Marcus again. Now, Mo has blocked me for a reason I'll pop up with. This isn't so much to just kind of put on drama on one person, because I'm not really bothered about that. It's more that when you have someone who has like kind of become prominent within a lot of these activist circles over the last year, like her YouTube channel has certainly blown up, and you come out with comments like, I want to curb stomp people, and then when you're called out on it, it's like, oh, it's just bants. It's just bants. Don't like why are you mad, Lamau? It's just a joke. When we know that Mo wouldn't accept the argument if any of us had said it. Like, well, because but there's no point talking about the hypocrisy here, because we all know they are very much aware of their hypocrisies. Like they fully embrace it, and they see that there are two different kinds of moralities: the ones that apply to them and the ones that apply to the people who they hate. Well, but it's the kind of reaction that you get from people who follow Mo and the kind of crowd that she is in, where all these kinds of comments on like curb stomping or like wanting to beat people up, because there's plenty of comments that we've seen throughout the time that I've been on YouTube or whatever, with people with the same kind of rhetoric. Whenever they join the crazies, they end up all speaking like this, and it's just always embraced. Like, these are the same people who flipped out when I made those comments about Contra being a junkie. That was absolutely out of order.
Yes, ContraPoints. A person with an opium addiction who laughs at the pause for not being able to afford fucking hair plugs.
Oh yes.
Well, what a great communist!
I saw that. It's like the hair plug photo is fucking horrendous, and it's like, oh, the people on 4chan, they're not as rich as I am. And it's like, okay, great, but
I don't know. To be fair, I don't think Contra really needs an opium addiction, because he already had a little bit of a case of like what I would describe. You see people in town centers and what I can only describe as having like hepatitis face.
Yeah. Like
I don't know how long she's been on those opiates for, but I don't know. She kind of looks like a bit of a town center junkie sometimes. I don't think she should be making fun of the pause, since no matter how much money you get, if you're a junkie, you're going to end up as one of the pause relatively quickly.
Yeah. But I just kind of like this kind of almost kind of like hit a nerve with me. All of this, I pointed out that like, again, they would never accept the just bants argument, but they demand that everyone respects their pronouns, and all they really want is like full on capitulation. Otherwise, they will openly call you a piece of shit and make comments like this, which Mo only backs down on, kind of, and just says, "Oh, it's just bants," because she got shit for it. And later on, she blocked me when I kind of called this out and said, "Oh, I'm just doing this to protect my mental health against shitty people," like. And the thing that kind of got me thinking, like, people like this openly do not respect people who disagree with them. And when I say disagree, I don't just mean that, they're actually kind of willing to think like, oh, I agree, I disagree. Like your general respectable rhetoric. Anything which isn't a complete capitulation to these people means that you are spreading violent rhetoric. I mean, there's somebody else who I just kind of want to point out as well. This person here, this woman, like, she became famous after, like, because she accused Calvin Garra of bullying her, and now she is like kind of making comments like this, which 460 people are liking, and you're getting lots of yes queens. And the thing is, these, like, it feels almost like a kind of awakening to me yet again. These people do not respect you at all, but they demand that you respect them enough to refer to them in the way that they want.
How many weeks? I don't know if he's ever going to come on the show again, but this feels like a long-running part of my The Left Wants You Dead series.
Yes.
Because the left wants you dead, and in case you haven't noticed, and they will very much say that they want you dead. It's like if they're, it's what I keep telling people, if they're going to threaten to kill you because of a relatively mild opinion, you might as well have strong opinions. You might as well say what you actually mean, because they're going to try and do it anyway.
Well, yeah, because there's literally no chance of having any kind of mediation with them. There's no kind of agree to disagree. It's all, you don't think that kids should be pumped full of hormones? Well, like you might as well be advocating for us to be sent to fucking Auschwitz. It's the way that these people always talk, and they act in such extreme ways, and the community as a whole only seeks to just condone what they do, and it just becomes more and more of a vicious cycle. Now, going back to the comments that I made about Contra at the start of the year, like, did anyone see like the wave of abuse that I got? Like, I'm talking thousands of people. I'm talking thousands of people that sent me all sorts of nasty comments. And, it actually did kind of impact me a bit mentally, because I was addicted to Twitter at the time. I shouldn't take social media bullying seriously, because you could just walk away from the computer.
Sorry.
So there's that. But
as our Lord and Savior Tyler says, yes.
Yeah, but they constantly just endorse angry, violent rhetoric, and the way in which I kind of summed this up after doing a bit of a Twitter thread on it, which I just think is like the best thing that I can say about it. We're dealing with deranged moral lepers who embrace degeneracy and extremism whilst constantly playing the victim card every chance they get.
Well, the thing is, if they're advocating for violence, and they are obviously having thoughts of violence, but say they're a pacifist, doesn't make them a pacifist. That makes them a coward who wants the government to do their violence for them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, at least when you get someone who's like a tanky, at least they have the balls to come out and say that yes, they are in favor of political violence, and yes, they do want to kill you. I'd prefer that. That is preferable. Yeah. I think a lot of these people are like lower on the food chain than actual tankies, because at least those people are honest with themselves and aren't people who are talking about memenches and having mental breakdowns and talking about posting for their mental health. Yeah. At least if you're going to be out and out violent, you're honest about it. This is just like a halfway house in which you want people to be killed, but you don't have the spine to do it yourself.
Yeah, and that's it. And again, like that kind of the line, like, these people want you dead, broken, like dying in a ditch, and your children raped and murdered. It's like, that is true. This is the way that so many of these people think. And so I wanted to kind of talk about this not as like a call out of a YouTuber. But this is just the way in which these kind of radicals act. And if this is not something which is just one person acting in a degenerate way, this is normalized. They never call any of this out, and they just allow it to fester more and more and more. And so when they tell you, oh, it's just a joke, it's just bants. First of all, they only ever say it when, like, they've received a bit of flack from people who they don't like. But they're lying. The truth is, these people would celebrate if you got assaulted. They would celebrate if something bad happens. I mean, hell, they go out of their way to ruin people's lives as much as possible. They will target your jobs. They will target any kind of platform that you can go on. They want to remove you from society. They do not want to play nice. And so them trying to back down, like Scrump said, like they're cowards, because they're just trying to pass things that they genuinely mean as just, oh, it's just a joke. No, like, if you want to curb stomp people who you disagree with, then, like, at least own it. And, like, but again, it isn't just about that one specific comment. It's just these things are so common. It's so common, and nobody on that supposed side, as it were, does anything about it. They just allow it to fester. And so when they start whining about, oh, things in Arkansas are getting really, really bad for trans people, and then you look at the kinds of trans people who are the ones pushing these kinds of, pushing all their kind of agenda through, and you end up seeing comments like that, and everyone applauding one another, being like, yes, queen, it's so brave. Like, no wonder people want to go hardline against trans, because all they're seeing is a bunch of degenerate, insane reprobates.
I don't know. I have a bit of a theory that the trans community as a whole is being set up as a fall guy by a large amount of the political establishment because they're being used as a distracting factor. They're being used as a social wedge. It's like really what's happened to the feminists, or at least the second wave feminists and the traditional feminists, that they have run out of their usefulness for kind of political expediency, and now they are being fully thrown under the bus when they were used to being the political establishment. But we haven't heard from you, Mr. Dean, a little bit, so please.
Well, I was just going to say that this is what this is the same thing that they did to the kind of gay rights movement. That's the same thing, and of course, I think gay white males now are probably a notch or two below child molester in the States. Assessment of people's moral and social worth. So yes, I mean they will use any kind of identity movement as a cudgel to beat to beat everyone with and to do whatever they need to do, and then they will discard it. And it's quite clear they do it with BLM. It's the same issue.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I just wanted to just kind of point this out. This is something that I'm actually planning on going into more in depth on in a video. It's interesting that I was working on this video. Anyways, there's the one that I was originally planning on getting out on Tuesday, and then I kind of have two great examples that kind of point out exactly what I was talking about. So it's going to be a few more days because I want to kind of work a few more things in. But I thought
we were talking about food.
I know. But I wanted to get this off my plate before we start talking about the gourmet seals.
I mean, technically, everything is edible. So any of these topics could in some way be about food. I mean, we could eat ContraPoints if we really needed to.
Well, she is making a lot of money, so technically, when they say "eat the rich," they are talking about her.
Yeah, exactly. We all need some very dry beef jerky in our lives.
With all those opiates, she's looking a bit stringy. But anyway, let's get off that topic.
So with that kind of rant out of the way, it's just something that just really annoyed me. I'm just sick of this rhetoric from the kind of radical trans activists. They're just constantly getting a pass and constantly being applauded. And Cammy, what are you doing?
What is Cammy doing? We need a Cammy update.
Cammy is under the desk at the moment, and she is trying to claw my big toe.
She wants on the stream. She's Cammy the cam cat, the cam girl.
Yes, I mean
I made the Cammy Cam Hall joke last week.
Oh, damn it!
She actually won her first ever appearance on Seal of Approval. She actually beat Count Dankula. So
not in voting, she went round to his house and beat him up. It's really weird.
I was going to say, literally.
So we have our gourmet seals. We have the gourmet seal, we have the George Floyd seal, we have the Prince Philip seal, and we have the loofah seal. So, Mr. D, you are the guest of honor at this banquet. Why don't you select our seal?
Oh dear. Well, I mean, I suppose I should go for the obvious, the gourmet seal. But maybe if we should let's do Prince Philip seal just to get that seal out of the way.
So we won't touch on Prince Philip too long, simply because a lot of people are going to be aware of that he's dead. I mean, you couldn't escape the news on Friday, which was kind of a little bit weird.
Oh, come on. He's been dead for a long time. Are we just going to gloss over the fact that they can't seem to put photos out of him that are after 2018 and 2017? They've been Febrezing him like they were Febrezing Ruth Bader Ginsburg for all that time. I mean, she definitely didn't die when they announced. Come on.
I've always thought that Prince Philip looked like the Phantom from Phantom Manor at Disneyland Paris. Let me see if I can just bring up I actually posted up a comparison between Prince Philip and the Phantom the day before he died. So it was actually quite fitting to have done that. Well, now where is here it is. Right, let me just bring this up real quick. So, I mean, it's mainly because I've seen photos of him like wearing a top hat. But there's Prince Philip, and there is the Phantom from Phantom Manor at Disneyland Paris.
He looks like the Spirit of Jazz from the Mighty Boosh.
I think it looks great. I mean, of course, the thing is, of course, to be fair, the man was, nearly 100 years old, and
officially,
yeah, and I think, I think he was always quite, he's always well known for his sartorial splendor. I've actually DM'd you a couple of pictures of Philip that I like, Rose, on Twitter. If you need some more.
I've sent you a meme, Rose. I don't know if you want to put it on stream or not.
Oh, no. I am not going to speak ill of the dead.
I annoyed quite a few people.
Well, it's been a couple of days now, so you can joke about it.
It's been a couple of days.
So,
I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry to make fun of Stamp Lady.
But like I think that Prince Philip would have appreciated that. I mean, like
it needs to be like shaking like a bad GIF and turning different colors. But everyone's like, bruh.
God damn it, Scrump.
No, wait a minute, Scrump. No. I'm sorry.
Disgusting.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Oh, God damn it. Yeah. Like one thing which I kind of appreciate after he died, though, is like they did apart from like the rabid leftists who were always going to celebrate the death of like a 99-year-old war veteran who actually did fight fascists. Like lots of people seem to come together and just kind of realize just how based he was. Let me
I don't know.
I just love some of the comments. Like some of his comments. Like, you got to admit, like some of these were pretty good.
I can see the actual number of viewers dropping. I'm not sorry. Meme is still on screen.
Oh, God damn it. But yeah, like that, I saw lots, like there were like the occasional person who was trying to flip out by saying like, oh, you need to, we should be condemning him. How dare we mourn the death of someone who said, if you stay here much longer, you'll go home with slitty eyes to a student in China.
I mean, yeah, there's the whole, he had, well, the thing is, I think they deliberately cultivated that reputation of him. To be honest, I think he was always seen as a bit of a cheeky lad on purpose.
Yeah,
that was what was endearing about him. But I don't know. I also don't like the fact that the royals very much kind of damped things down with the Prince Andrew stuff and let him keep his titles and things like that. That doesn't sit very well with me. No. And there's all kinds of shit about not only Prince Andrew but Prince Philip as well. There's been rumors for years about his inappropriate behavior, as well as Prince Andrew. And it's kind of one of these things that, yes, there is this public image of the royal family, but like Prince Andrew is just the worst example of it. And they are very, very much just trying to sweep that under the rug when he is exceptionally obviously like a nonce. Yeah. And as far as I am, a lot of the stuff is entertaining, but I can't help but think that this royal family has stood back and watched. And, there's a whole thing about, the royal family would never interfere. It's like, why not? The country's gone to shit. What is there to lose at this point?
Well, I did make that point on UO yesterday, which is that people, I think, have this false idea that the monarch has no power. I mean, the monarch has power. I mean, she actually has quite a lot of power. It's just that the current monarch chose when she ascended to the throne not to use it. That is a personal decision, but I mean the power is there. So it isn't. I'm not going to I'm not going to dunk on the Queen, but I do think that she unfortunately sat by and watched the country disintegrate over her reign, and when I think she could have pushed But for various reasons, she didn't.
Like I kind of understand why she would not want to get involved as well. Like one of the benefits I think of having like the monarchy in the UK is that you effectively have an apolitical figurehead, as opposed to your country being defined on the world stage by the prime minister or president, who is going to be divisive regardless of what their views are going to be. Like at least with the Queen, who is someone who, despite being the Queen and living in a palace, is someone who's actually kind of frugal with a lot of her money. And so she's like the royal family at their best are people who you can kind of like get behind for that reason. Like they are almost kind of like mascots of the UK.
Well, they are, but again, that reputation is mildly illusionary. Let's not forget that they still have huge amounts of land. And I mean, people don't refer to it anymore, but the Shell Oil Company, which is one of the biggest oil companies of the world, is still Royal Dutch Shell and is still largely owned by the UK and Dutch royal families. I mean, let's not pretend that the royal family in the UK doesn't have a power base, because they do. And like I said, I don't like a lot of this because he could have done something about it. They could have done something about all of this. And they chose not to. They chose to protect their own interests and their own wealth and their own kind of position as, the whole thing about like the public service stuff. Fine, you get to go to events, you have to turn up and cut ribbons and stuff like that. But it's still a case of, fair enough, they're a tourist attraction, but like, why did they just sit back and let the population of the UK essentially be sold down the river a lot of times when they must have known in some capacity what was going on? I can't abide a lot of this. Oh, Prince Philip was based. Well, he was so based, he would have fucking done something.
Yeah, I think that rests on the Queen, mostly. I mean, sadly, I've often wondered if in a way she was never meant to be the monarch. I mean, she certainly when she was born, she it wasn't in the stars, and then it was sort of thrust upon her. And I've often wondered if she sort of chose to take a very hands-off role because she felt that perhaps it wasn't her role to,
they take a very hands-on
to step in.
They take a very hands-on role when a door pillar needs to go through a former princess, but that seems to be their only active interest.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think Diana Spencer, I think there were lots of signs there that she was on a self-disintegrating spiral.
I'm mostly being facetious there. I know. I don't want to spark any daily. Was it Daily Mirror who used to put an article about Diana out like every week?
Oh no, that was the Express.
That was Express. Okay, the Express used to have a Diana story
like once a week. It wouldn't just be a story. It would be a front page headline. And like, I actually can't remember when they stopped doing it, but it went on for at least like 2 decades after her death.
Yeah, I mean, that I've often put 1997 as kind of the worst year for Britain because it was the beginning of the insane behavior around Diana's death, and it was also the year that Tony Blair ascended to power. So I think that those two things were very ruinous to the UK.
But we did get the N64.
That makes it all worth it.
Oh,
I don't know. Not to shill my own channel too much, but I did do a couple of weeks ago a complete like Tony Blair special about just how terrible the man's premiership was. But
so I just wanted to kind of touch on Prince Philip a little bit, just because it was something that was such a big news story. It's kind of it's one of these things that you kind of have to talk about almost. But really, I think that we should go into what I think a lot of people have tuned in for, and that is a quite special friend. Where has he gone? Where has he gone? Oh, God damn it. I actually had like the Gourmet seal lined up as like a pic. Ah, here he is.
You found him. He has been located. He wandered off to get some spices, but now he's back.
There he is. The gourmet seal himself. Like, he actually looks like a chef even before
He
you
does.
put the
He's
hat
got
on.
like a chef, like a walrus face almost.
And so, like, one of the reasons why, as I mentioned earlier, one of the reasons why I wanted to kind of talk about cooking is because, you know, it's something which is a huge passion of mine. So let me just bring up my, like, it's quite useful that I have like my Instagram account, because it's mostly used for two reasons, which is taking pictures of food and taking pictures of Cammy. Like, as you can see, there's lots of pictures from when I first got
you
her.
become a cat lady. I'm gonna have to put you down.
Yes, but look at her. Like, you know, look at this. Look at that face.
Yes.
Like, she is a good cat. She's a good cat. It
is quite a majestic cat. I will say. And of course, when they're fully grown, I mean, I think they are really the Chad of the cat world.
Yeah,
Maine Coons are, yes.
Yeah. They are absolutely. Yeah.
They are Chad cats. I agree.
She actually, she started going outside. Like, I'll take her outside with me, to have a little bit of a mooch around. She actually did meet another cat the other day, but the cat actually tried to go for her.
Oh no!
Which is a huge shame. Like, I mean, she was being very, very defensive. And then as soon as she let her guard down, the cat just kind of like jumped at her and they went tumbling down onto the grass. And I felt really, really bad for her. But, you know, she tried to stand her own. Just this other cat was like, you know, like, and the owner lives next door and we were chatting and it looked like they were getting on. Turned out they weren't, because I've still got a lot to learn about cats. But he won't be trying it in a couple of months when she is a titan. Because
an absolute unit, yeah.
She is going to be an absolute unit of a cat. And so like this, one of the things that I kind of wanted to touch on is like the kind of cooking that everyone likes to do, and the kind of dishes that you think are, well, your favorite cuisines, really, and like your influences on your favorite cuisines. So Mr. D, you used to be a chef. So like, what would you say like your favorite cuisine is?
Oh, well, yeah, okay. Incidentally, I always call myself a cook. I was always uncomfortable calling myself a chef, because I think of a chef as the kind of the kind of creator, the person who sort of comes up with concepts and you know and new novel dishes and such. Yeah. And so I tended to like to regard myself as more the humble cook, and I did work as a personal cook and did catering and such. So, but I sort of learned in, I would say, the French tradition. I think that everyone who studies cookery and goes into that profession, in a way, does pick up a lot of French gastronomy, just because it was the system. Those were the chefs who kind of codified the modern restaurant system. Escoffier, was basically the man who sort of turned the kitchen into kind of a military brigade and made the chef the commander and really sort of regimented the whole thing, and so that it could run efficiently. And that model is still practiced. So I do think the French influence is a big one with me. But I have quite universalist sort of taste. I mean, I like everything, and I have favorites and great appreciations and cravings and dealings with all manner of cuisines. But I would say the French is probably the basis of my my sort of experience with cookery.
I mean, like, it's also, I might also point out, I think it was in Paris where the first actual themed restaurants came from as well. So like a lot of the kind, like whether it's even if it's just something as simple as like your chain restaurants like Frankie and Benny's, which do have like a very kind of loose theme to it, or something all the way up to like Hard Rock Cafe or Rainforest Cafe or anything like that. All of those ideas initially came from Paris. So we do have the French to thank for basically restaurants in general, the way that we see them.
They codified a lot of it into theory and stuff, but a lot of the stuff has existed before that and gone around that, and it's what you refer to as the French system, which is correct. People get the wrong idea when you talk about French cooking. They think you mean just like French. They think you mean fucking fried snails. They don't realize that you mean kind of like the French ethos and system, and you're right, the restaurant system and how it's codified.
Yeah.
That's what people really mean by French cooking.
Yeah.
Because they really did just take a lot of European food that isn't French, and there's a lot of influence there. It's quite wide. I don't know. It's again, I think it's a bit of a misnomer for people who haven't like studied cookery in any way. They seem to not understand what you mean by French cuisine,
and Catherine de Medici brought sort of many influences from the cooking of Italy into France in the 16th century, and so yes, I mean that I was, like Scrump said, referring to this sort of the kind of philosophy of French cookery. And when you say French cooking, there are many different cuisines all through France. It's not just one sort of not one type of cuisine. It's not one food. It's many different cuisines depending on where you are.
Well, it's almost like how people use Latin for scientific terms. A lot of cooking terms people use French for, just because that's how it was codified, really.
I mean, chef, for instance, is a French word.
But it's like when you talk about like with the different kinds of cuisines that you get in French cooking, it's like that for Chinese as well. Like a lot of people just seem to assume that Chinese is your simple, like what you get from a takeaway. So your sweet and sour chicken with rice and prawn crackers. When the actual cuisine itself is incredibly varied, and there's so many different, there's so many different kinds of dishes that feel like they are just like their kind of take on a Western thing, but they're their own complete beast. Like, let me just show one of my favorite Chinese foods, which I haven't been able to have in a long time.
Well, there is the thing that a lot of Chinese cooking as well has been influenced by, especially modern Chinese cooking, by Western cooking, as well as in that they have also taken on a lot of this tradition and incorporated it in the same way we've taken on a lot of Chinese stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kind of stuff that we see codified now didn't really exist in China, say, 30 years ago. It's a relatively modern invention, but you're right. A lot of it is to do with like flavor profiles as well. I keep trying to describe this to people who ask me kind of about like cooking, and it's just like, if you want to understand Chinese cooking, basically a lot of it is just like balancing different levels of chili, garlic, and ginger in a lot of dishes, and a lot of marinades. And it's kind of the trifecta of it. It's also kind of like how a lot of people don't understand, like, it's a case of fundamentals really as well. When you get to cooking, a lot of people don't understand what you mean when you talk about like deglazing a pan and things like that. Yeah, it's not something people have ever thought about or done a lot of the time. But it isn't that complex. There's a lot of mysticism when it comes to cooking, a lot of mystifying when it comes to cooking. Yeah, and really a lot of the time, if you can get decent ingredients and cook them in a way that retains the flavor of them, you generally are most of the way there.
Yeah. Now, this is just something I want to kind of point out as a Chinese food that I do really want to learn to make, which is xiaobing, which is it's kind of treated as a breakfast food. I was hoping to get it when I was in Shanghai. It's kind of like a pancake, which is stuffed with shiatsu, various kind of spices, vegetables, and I think that there's like some sort of paste goes in there as well. There is actually, I was able to find a place in London that sold it. Like, I wasn't able to find anywhere in Shanghai that sold it because I always woke up too late. Like, they only seem to sell it first thing in the morning, and then as soon as they sell out of ingredients, they kind of just shut it down. But that's kind of like just an example of like all these kind of weird and really good things that are within Chinese cooking. It is genuinely one of my favorites. I do find it as something which is usually quite fast paced. I'm not often I don't find it's not really the kind of thing that you would do, kind of put something on for a relaxing afternoon. If you're making shiatsu, then yeah, because that can take like a couple of hours to roast or something like a duck. But so much of it, you'll be ready within an hour.
It's very quick.
It's incredibly quick, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's taken off so much, and why, it was one of the first things that I kind of learned to cook. I got this cookbook. There's like Ken Hom. It was called The Art of Chinese Cookery, and I think this wasn't what I made for you. Well, I think I've made some of this stuff for Scrum.
Yes,
Factory.
you have. Then you made me some. I'll have to cook for you at some point because I'm. I don't know. I need a bigger kitchen really here. My kitchen's kind of it's one of those kitchens that's tacked onto a terrace house, so it's a bit small really for what I want to do. But it is functional. It does work.
Yeah.
I don't know, but you haven't really like what would be your go-to thing to make then, like Mr. D there, Chef D.
God, stop. Scullery cook D. Oh dear, what would be my go-to thing? I mean, I tend to, when I'm on my own, I tend towards the simple. I think as most people do. I mean, for me, there's a certain kind of almost fundamental foods like a sort of perfectly roasted chicken with tarragon, and butter. I mean, I love the sort of to kind of isolate, very basic flavors and then make that the this sort of focus of my meal if I'm doing something for myself or just friends or family or whatever. But it depends. I mean, of course, I will change it up. I'm in quite a veg mood at the moment, so I've been doing a lot of quasi Chinesey things. I know very little about Chinese cookery. I mean, it's really a whole universe of itself in a certain way. But I do like that observation you made, Scrump, about lots of these dishes are basically finding a balance between these few basic ingredients, and which is absolutely true. And I mean, I tend to go for the simple, sort of direct things that emphasize a couple of flavors. I sort of dislike over complexity in food. So when you start breaking out the fennel pollen and all of that. I mean, and I think there's a distinction that people need to make, which is that the heart and soul of cookery is in the home. It isn't in a restaurant, and I think that there's so much focus amongst foodies to kind of restaurantize cooking. Everything has to be sort of plated, everything has to be sort of in this kind of manner, there has to be this complexity, there has to be fancy ingredients. I have to have Marcona almonds, I cannot do this dish otherwise. And I think that is
activated almonds.
I need activated almonds. But I think that's not, that's losing focus of what food is. I mean, food is something that you do in your home for people that you love, and it is for nourishment, it is for community, and it is for the appreciation of God's bounty. So I think I tend towards the kind of country approach, if anything.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would agree with that because I'm not a huge fan of like the super fancy meal. Like everything with the things which I try and cook, even like the kinds of restaurants that I go to, it's just about something which is just simple, but it tastes nice. Like that's it. I know it's like a very kind of basic take on it, but like the kinds of Michelin star restaurants that I've been to, I've only been to 2. Both of those were in Hong Kong, and they were dirt cheap. Like one of them was a place called Tim Ho Wan, which is just dim sum, and the other one was, I think it's called Yat Lok, which is a roast goose emporium, where you get roasted goose with shiatsu, and it is
the goose
incredible. It's
the roasted goose is loose.
The goose, that goose was one of the best meals of my life, because it, like, I've had roasted goose since then, and like nothing has ever compared. Like the skin was unbelievably crispy. It was kind of like biting into very, very tasty glass, which I think is I know is a weird way of describing it.
No, I get that.
I can't think of anything else. But
yeah.
Like the meat underneath it was so juicy and tender, and like that kind of that. Like normally, I'm not a huge fan of mixing different kinds of textures. I like, if I'm going to eat something, I generally like the texture to be quite similar throughout it. But with this, like these are two very different kinds of feelings that you're getting from it, but it was just done so perfectly that it did kind of change my mind on basically on food texture, because I was a very fussy eater for a very, very long time, and it's really only through getting it's really only through cooking that I've actually been able to eat better. And rather than like I stay away from things that like oven chips and chicken nuggets and all of that stuff now, because I can actually
Tendies.
Because I actually have.
Sometimes you just need nuggies. Sometimes you just gotta have those nuggies.
I just wanted to kind of touch on like one of my favorite types of food to cook. Like, I mentioned that I really like Chinese food. Again, I'm not someone who has been taught how to do Chinese cooking, so I wouldn't be able to go into any kind of detail on the complexities that are involved. But one kind of cuisine that I do think that I am particularly good at is Creole or Cajun cooking. Now, that is probably my favorite type of food in the world. And the reason for it is there's a very simple kind of rhythm that you get into when you're doing Cajun cooking. A lot of it involves what's known as the Holy Trinity, which is onion, pepper, and celery, and specifically green pepper. Although for some reason around here, green pepper is quite awkward to get hold of. But I digress. So you need to have a balance of those three ingredients into it. And then so long as you have like something like cayenne pepper or some paprika, a bit of cumin, and like I normally would use something like smoked garlic alongside it. And then another kind of key ingredient, which you could probably see in this picture here, is smoked sausage. Like you use a smoked sausage, and you use the best quality smoked sausage you can get hold of, which unfortunately in the UK are quite hard to get hold of. So if you want,
it can be quite difficult to get. I've been trying to get hold of some actually good quality, like German and Polish sausage, because my local Aldi has stopped selling the massive proper bratwursts, which kind of annoys me. Because I quite liked having access to like frikadelle and Wiener Schnitzel and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, I would say that Waitrose stock incredibly good bratwurst. So that's one place where I've been able to find good ones. But when it comes to an actual smoked sausage, like normally the best, like around where I live at the moment, the best that I can find is a kielbasa, which you can just get from like Tesco, because that seems to be the only place that actually even stocks them around here. And they're not going to be like amazing quality, but like so few places in the UK do it. When I lived in London and I'd go to Borough Market, and you'd actually be able to pick up like French smoked sausages that have been imported directly from France.
You can probably sometimes find some of this stuff delivered though, if you look hard enough, and it's not so expensive either. You can also find a lot of independent stores, even out in the boonies. Because I go to a lot of like Asian, Chinese, and Eastern European soup. Like if I want to get the stuff I can, I just have to go a little bit out of my way. You can find a lot of specialist stores.
Yeah, I mean, like around here there is a specialist Chinese store. Although the lady running it didn't know half the ingredients that I asked her for, including sesame paste, which was really weird.
That's very weird.
Really simple ingredients.
Did she inherit the shop? I used to flog cell phones, and now I'm doing Chinese cooking.
Like some of the best smoked sausage that I've ever been able to get hold of was at a butcher chain in London called the Ginger Pig. Which, whilst I was living in London, I would just swear by them for all my meat. Like it was very expensive, but like you can see in that photo, you can see some of the big chunks of a smoked Toulouse sausage, which like they would be smoked in a smoker in South Wales and then brought over to the Ginger Pig. But as soon as lockdown hit, for some reason, that smoking place just seemed to shut down, and so they no longer sold them. if you're able to get hold of like good quality smoked sausage, you can throw almost anything together just with those ingredients and effectively just call it Cajun.
Okay, so Cajun is pretty fast and loose. I used to make like a Cajun style stir fry sometimes, like really quickly. They were pretty good. I don't know. I think for a lot of people, they're just not particularly adventurous. Like I've realized now that my cooking and my kind of range of ingredients isn't like, it's only just in the last couple of years really that a lot of people have started using stuff like sweet potato. Most people
really,
no. Most people I know who like, you know, even who might cook for themselves occasionally, they don't like. They never had like sweet potato before, or not regularly at least.
Jesus
sometimes
Christ.
They might get in a restaurant, but they wouldn't know how to cook it themselves. I think that's the problem, in that a lot of people just they don't know how to cook, and if they don't know how to cook it, it's really it's I don't want to slate people, but it's quite basic. As in that a lot of people are never taught the fundamentals of like balancing savory, sweet, and kind of acidity. Like a lot of people, when I've occasionally taught people to cook a little bit or advise people on how to cook, they seem like extremely surprised by my liberal use of like white wine or balsamic vinegar in certain dishes that they wouldn't think they would be in. And it's just like, no, you do in a lot of cases need the acid there, especially to get proper caramelization in some cases as well. It's a very important part of cooking, and a lot of people seem quite surprised by that.
Yeah, and when you have a look at the way in which cooking is taught in schools, I mean, the way in which, if you had like cooking classes in school, I think it was just become under like home economics food or something like that, I think it was called. And you would basically just be taught a really basic ingredient. You wouldn't be told any of the fundamentals of it. You wouldn't be told any way in which you can shake it up. You were just then told, right, bring in these ingredients, follow this recipe. And that was it. You had no understanding as to, okay, you were making a bolognese. You're making a bolognese, but you had no kind of understanding of what went into it. Why would you do this? Or any way of being adventurous and actually making the recipe your own. I mean, like whenever you get a cookbook, like by all means, when you're making it the first time, follow the recipe as exact. But from there, you use that as a basis to make it your own, to add in the flavors and the textures that you want. And you're not taught that. And so what ended up happening in school, I remember the bolognese thing, because like this is kind of dumb, but when we were cooking bolognese in school, I actually bought in a bottle of Dolmio. I was actually given by my parents a bottle of Dolmio to a jar of Dolmio to just like make a bolognese in school, and I literally just used that. And I got the same grade as anyone who cooked it from scratch. Every single person got a 9 out of 10, including me.
I'm not a fan as well of a lot of these recipe boxes people seem to do, because they're awful. You learn how to follow a specific recipe, and you learn to be reliant on a food company. You don't actually learn how to cook.
Yes,
and you pay an exorbitant amount of money for those.
You do.
Horribly overpriced. I mean, I think this is a trend with everything, though. I mean, I think that the corporatist, globalist, sort of ethos is to make everyone into an eternal into an eternal consumer. You want people to. You don't want people to be able to, boil a potato themselves. Yes, you want them to go and buy a Charlie Bigham's meal for £8.
Don't tell AA that.
Little dunk on our old friend there.
Potatoes are cheap, veg is cheap, and I make a lot of stews. Actually, that's how I tend to stretch a lot of my. If I'm feeling not cheap, but a lot of everyday. I as much as I can. I try and cook from ingredients every day, and a lot of that is making stock. A lot of people would be very, very, very daunted by the idea of making a stock. But really, I can make like a stock with chicken and some chicken thighs and chicken bones, and I can have food there that will last me if I put it in a pan with some vegetables, and stew it for an hour each day. I can have 3 or 4 days worth of food for me, or 2 or 3 days worth of food for a couple of people. It's amazing how far that can go, and how cheap doing that is.
Yeah, I mean, one thing which I've been
incredibly easy as well. People get daunted by the idea of it, but there's nothing easier than it. You put something and steep it in water, and there you go.
I mean, that's why I've been doing a lot of batch cooking over the last couple of weeks, because then I've got, like, at the moment, I've now just got meals for a very long time. And then whenever I kind of, like, room in the freezer starts to open up, I then just make something else. But, like, going back to, like, talking about Cajun cooking, like, you mentioned about how, how cheaply you can make some meals. And I would say that Cajun cooking is a very cheap and very accessible cuisine, especially for people within the UK. I mean, obviously, if you want to shake things up, that's what, and start getting more specialized ingredients. Like, for example, I use a lot of nduja when I'm making jambalaya. That can get a bit pricey, but like, let's take this jambalaya for example. Let's ignore the fact that I got my meat from a very expensive butcher. So, what went into this? So, what we have is assortment of smoked sausages. So that is the smoked Toulouse as well as a smoked chorizo, and some nduja. But that can just be a kielbasa, which you can get from Tesco at the Polish area for like £2. Then I've added in these vegetables, which has to be your onion, your peppers, your celery. All three of those are ridiculously cheap. Then add in some smoked bacon. You can get bacon for like £1 to £2. Obviously, get more expensive if you can, but that pack of bacon, you only need a few rashers from it, and then you got the rest for bacon sandwiches or whatever. And finally, just chicken. Like and chicken thighs in particular, one of the cheapest cuts that you can get at a supermarket.
Yeah.
Toss in a couple of spices, so like your smoked paprika, your your cayenne pepper, both of which you can get for like 80p each at Tesco. Add in a bit of garlic in there, a bit of chili, and then finally some chicken stock, and then you get your rice, and you put your rice in there, put it in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes. And like that is an incredibly cheap meal, and it's one with a very interesting taste to it as well.
There's certain things. There's a lot of stuff as well. There's batch cooking is a good one if you live on your own. I think a lot of people have kind of lost touch with the idea of cooking, like family cooking, and a lot of dishes are more ideal if you're cooking for multiple people or eating them for multiple days.
Absolutely. It's difficult for me to cook for multiple people when I'm living on my own, and like all my friends live hours away. So
it's nice having it's been nice having people living with me. For the first time in a while, because I've been able to cook a lot more, because certain dishes you don't want to be making for one person a lot of the time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like anything involving seafood.
Yes,
because that just doesn't freeze well. Like, speaking of seafood, I want to show off something which I was very proud of making. This was like entirely my own recipe from last year. So I kind of understood the basics of doing what is known as a shrimp boil, despite it not really being boiled all that much. Where it's just you use waxy potatoes, onions, streaky bacon, some nice chunky smoked sausage, garlic.
The big thing is as well, the more you cook, the better, more of a feel you get for it. I'm sure you understand what I mean when I say, I'm sure Mr. D there, Chef D. Yes, chef. Sorry, chef. I know he wanted to do that's why I'm doing it. But I'm sure you know what I mean when I say you get to the point where you can tell how meat is done just by poking it.
Yes.
And you get that sense of like, I don't know. I've cooked stuff for people like, are you sure that's cooked? I'm just like, yeah, I poked it. It's fine. You know, you can tell by the texture of meat. You can have like a sixth sense. You just kind of get an internal timer sometimes as well.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I'm much more cautious about cooking like frozen chicken burgers or something than I would be cooking a normal chicken breast.
Yeah, it's a lot. I think a lot of people they've been scared a lot by a lot of like government food safety stuff.
Yeah,
they think they have to make chicken actual rubber.
The absolute worst. Yes, I mean, and also salmonella. That's another little demon that people have been trained to be frightened of. You're not going to get salmonella. It's actually very rare. It's not just an endemic thing that's in all eggs or all chicken.
Yeah.
People are very squeamish about pork. I mean, because I mean that's a fear of trichinella, which has been wiped out for decades. There is no trichinella in the pork, in the domestic pork population.
You have to end up in like China to get that.
Yeah. So people are much too cautious about things. Wash your hands after you poo, and you'll be fine.
Oh god, that reminds me of a story about a fucking Indian place that got shut down. Because they kept testing the food and finding it's to do with the guy said it was a religious thing because he could only wash his hands in a certain way because of the whole Muslim thing. I don't know, that was an excuse, but he basically was preparing food with the same hand he wiped his arse was without washing it. Which made me a little bit cautious about takeaways for a while.
There's another reason to cook your own food is you know exactly how it's been treated.
Yes,
absolutely.
You do.
Yeah, the thing is you know exactly what's going into it,
yeah.
And you know whether or not there's any kind of risk of contamination, which, provided that you're not a slob, is going to be quite low.
But I was going to ask. Oh, sorry.
I was just reminded of a very esoteric food fact. Since this is seal of approval, I was looking into botulism, the serious disease. Yeah, as you do, just on
I wonder what botulism's up to these days.
So it turns out in America, they have very few cases of botulism each year. Most of them are in Alaska. And they are among the native population of Alaska, and they're usually from poorly preserved seal.
Yes.
Which I had no idea that basically all the cases of botulism come from people doing terrible things to seals.
Yeah. So seal meat, seals do have a lot of parasites. And a lot of the time when people do catch them, kill them for food, it's very rarely actually prepared properly. Seal is one of the I am an adventurous carnivore, but it shouldn't surprise anyone that I would draw the line at seal. I would never eat seal.
No, I wouldn't eat seal.
I'm
the same way about octopus. I like octopus as an animal so much that yes, I tend not to eat them.
I mean, octopus is the kind of thing that I wouldn't tell people to run out and eat. I wouldn't say it's the most amazing thing in the world.
Yeah,
but
it's
I have eaten octopus, and it can't if it's done properly. If it's done properly, I would say kind of flame grilled octopus, kind of done, on the flame grill, and that can be nice.
Yeah, but it's not a first choice food,
Not really, no. I would get it with something else. There's a at Europa Park, which I often go to with my friends. They have this restaurant which has various different meats on the skewer, and octopus will just kind of be right. If I need to select 5 different meats, I've selected 4 already. Right, I need one more thing. Fine, I'll have the octopus. It's not something that I would rush out and kind of have. Although I would say that the texture on it isn't quite as rubbery as I would expect it to be.
I mean, certainly properly prepared. It's not as natively rubbery as squid, I would say.
Yeah. I would say squid is a lot more rubbery than octopus.
I also used to make quite a lot of rather spicy food as well.
Mm-hmm.
I get quite into my Thai food, and also one of the things I got roped into when I did used to work in kitchens was they actually had real trouble getting their spicy chicken wings spicy enough without using too much of ingredients at the same time. So they ended up roping me in to use because I brought in I still have a few actually. I have a lot of extremely spicy sauces.
Oh God, those!
I've probably got a picture I could send you, Rose, actually somewhere.
Oh, great. Yes, yeah. If you got it on your thing, send it over. I'll put it up.
I will definitely send it to you. I'll have to waffle for a little bit until I can find it. It's probably been archived in my Google Photos, which my phone insists on doing. It won't let me turn that off a lot of the time. But yeah, I've got a lot of stuff with a lot of them have funny names. I think the worst one I had was the Arse Reaper.
Arse Reaper.
Yeah,
I am also a total chili head, and I actually grow ghost chilies and Scotch bonnets and such each summer.
Oh,
so,
of course.
I need to get into that actually.
Really into chilies. It's and I'm blessed with like a fairly muted response to very spicy chili, so I tend to be able to eat things that most people would shy away from. But many of those sauces do have quite creative names.
Well, I get them out of necessity a lot of the time, because if you're making a big batch of chili, if you want to actually get that quite spicy, a lot of the time you'd be using like whole bottles of sauce sometimes.
Yeah.
And I want something I can actually put stuff on, put it on something, and I've got more than those now. I have about that many now, but they're different ones. I used to have I can't find it. I used to have a really big collection for a while before.
You got one called Godslayer.
Oh, Godslayer's really good. I've still got that. There's
an awesome name.
I don't think Insanity sauce.
Oh, Dave's is great. I like Dave's. I swear by Dave's. There's also a sauce there called Cambridge 10, which tastes a lot like roasted onion and garlic. That's delicious. And the one I use most sparingly, but I find is the best for spicing things up, is the original Blair's Ultra Death. Not any of the After Death or special edition ones. Like actual Blair's Ultra Death is insanely hot. It's like, it does have a bit of extract in it. I'm not a big fan of extract-based sauces normally. Right. But that is actually really good for spicing up pans of chili. And it doesn't give you that horrendous, like, just pain burn that most extracts do. It is a very nice ghost pepper-based sauce as well as. And it is like, it's the only, a lot of them claim to be like over 1 million Scoville units. That's the only one where I actually felt it. That is an insanely spicy sauce, but it is still tasty. So,
well, yeah. Well, let's actually, whilst you mention chili, it's like, what do you put in your chili? Because like chili is one of my favorite kind of things to cook.
Oh, it depends on the chili. A lot of it, like I said, a lot of it is just balancing. It's I make a lot of Cajun style chilies actually.
All right.
Because I'll use like Cajun spice, and I'll use like celery, pepper. I'll get some roasted or smoked garlic, like you said. Basically, chilies are. A lot of people don't treat chilies properly. A chili is a lot more like a stew than people like to realize.
It isn't just a quick thing that you put in a pan.
No,
you can leave it for several hours.
Yeah, you do. So I put like several waves of pepper in it, because you want some peppers that are basically dissolved in the sauce, and you want some peppers that are still crunchy. I use white onion, red onion. I just chuck stuff in it over the course of cooking it in stages, so it has lots of different texture in it.
Yeah.
But I find that the biggest thing really is kind of making almost like an initial stock for it. Like if I'm making a really big pan of chili, I go whole hog and like cook like a tomato based like beef stock like overnight. So it has like a sauce like that. I almost do it like you do like a slow cooked bolognese in many ways. But I just kind of throw as many things at it as I think will be complementary until I'm satisfied with how it is. My chili is kind of a see how it goes chili. But there's I used, not famous for it, but the main thing I said about it is I used to add like literally like 7 different types. I'd have like chili flakes in it. I'd have like 2 types of fresh chili. I'd have like 5 different chili sauces. And I just keep adding other types of chili because I don't know. I've found if you do that, it as long as they're good sauces and good ingredients, it adds like different dimensions to the chili taste of it.
Yes.
And you just keep adding little bits of different chili until it becomes either hot enough or tasty enough, whichever comes first.
But for me, the real game changer with making a chili is actually not even to do with the level of spice. It's to do with the type of meat that you use. So I know a lot of people will use mince, like steak mince or like ground beef or whatever as it's known in America. But because I slow cook mine, and I use a combination of beef brisket and short rib.
Yes, that is exactly. If I was doing a high effort chili, that is exactly what I'd use as well.
And so I use the short rib with the meat still on the bone.
Yes.
So when I make the initial stock, so what kind of goes into mine is I'll use some fresh coffee. I'll rehydrate some dry chilies within that coffee. So it'll be something like some habaneros or chipotles. I'll also use a tin of chipotle in adobo sauce. Now, the adobo sauce itself can be a little bit overwhelming, so I normally balance that out by adding in more cumin, because to me, like a good chili. I like one of the most kind of defining tastes in a chili for me is the cumin. So I need to make sure that I get the cumin feel from it.
A bit of a kuma there. Cumin.
Cuma.
I'm gonna cume.
I have one of those memes. There's actually a meme, the 20-year-old Cuma, and it's all like about cumin.
I think I have seen the same meme. Because that's why I made that joke. No, a lot of it is. A lot of people don't realize as well that there's basically you can make a chili however you want to make it. Because I've done some weird types of chili that I've encountered around the world. Because one of the ones I used to do occasionally is Cincinnati style chili, which has quite a lot of cinnamon and chocolate in it. Actually,
I use cinnamon in mine.
They make it a bit more runny because it's meant to be almost like a chili bolognese sauce. It's kind of a runnier chili that you put through spaghetti or you put over hot dogs. That's how it's meant to be served.
Oh, of course, yeah. I use cinnamon in mine. I haven't yet. I've always been tempted to experiment by putting chocolate in it. Because I've heard that can give out a really good taste.
It depends. You can ruin it as well. It depends on the type of chili that you're making. You have to be. You have to really commit to using the chocolate and kind of base the chili around that if you're going to do it. That's
exactly it. And I have got quite comfortable with the kind of rhythm that I have with my chilies, and like the recent kind of game changer, the chili in the chipotle chilies in adobo sauce, and you just kind of chop them up beforehand, and it just like. Pour it in with the sauce, and then when you're leaving it to cook, and you make sure that the short rib, the meat is still on the bone, and then after a couple of hours, when basically at a point when the meat is falling off the bone, that's when you take out the meat and you chop it up, and then you put it back in there. And you need to have the bones in there in order to give it like a much more of a rich beef flavor. Like I think a lot of people tend to avoid cooking with bones, in dishes with like a kind of like a broth in it. When I think it's it's something
you need to. Like I said, that's why sometimes I will slow cook like a stock to use in a chili overnight. Yeah, and to get that flavor into it, because that is incredibly important.
Yeah, you need the collagen, you know, because not just the flavor, but it also just gives it a certain mouthfeel and texture.
It does.
Bones are very important.
Yeah, just point out, I have made mole. I have made mole. It didn't quite. It like I think that the type of chocolate that I used, it was like 85% dark chocolate, which I think was a bit too intense. I'm going to try it again with like 70% cocoa chocolate in it, where hopefully that will come out like a bit less strong. It did come out quite bitter. It was nice like the first couple of bites, but to kind of carry on with it, you needed to put in a lot of sour cream. So I clearly had messed up somewhere with that chocolate balance. But mole is great. And
I mean, there's definitely affinity between these ingredients, between chocolate and chili and coffee and cinnamon. I mean, often people who don't cook, they're quite reticent to combine things that they think are sweet. You know, like cinnamon is something that you only put with sweet foods, when in fact that's not true. I mean, these things
are cooking with sugar.
Sugar. Yes, sugar. Nutmeg is another one. When you're doing, cooking mushrooms or cooking spinach, just a small hint of nutmeg. Not enough so that when you taste it, you say, "Oh, this tastes like nutmeg." But just a little hint of that. It gives it a really pointed up flavor.
Or pasta. If you're making something like an Alfredo or a mac and cheese, that little sprinkle of nutmeg can really, really help bring it alive.
It can also work as well. Like I said, nutmeg is actually, it's weird because nutmeg is something I generally associate more with savory cooking when I do it, because I don't tend to make too many desserts really, because that's not the best thing for your waistline. So I generally would use nutmeg more in kind of savory cooking. It's also good if you. I also do it in mashed potato at Christmas. I make like a Christmas kind of mash that's kind of like a weirdly spiced mashed potato, but it works, and that's got a bit of nutmeg in it and stuff like that as well. Okay. It works really well with like a nice, like a buttery mash, a little bit of nutmeg in it. Really, really, really brings it to life sometimes. But it's just one of those things. If you think something might work, there's no harm in trying it.
Yes.
Because a lot of people as well, they're a little bit more reticent to cook with things like alcohol. A lot of people don't know how to cook with, I actually, when I can, it's kind of, I wish I was cooking for more people sometimes so I could justify getting boxed wine and boxed ciders again, like I used to have when I worked in the kitchen, because it's so convenient just to take a pan over and get some red wine or some cider into it.
Pop some
like
in,
I do occasionally throw in some bourbon into my into my chilies if I need to deglaze the pan before kind of building up the stock itself. Like after I've fried like the onions and some of the spices and the chilies, like I'll just throw in a bit of bourbon as well. And like that, like, using alcohol, especially when you're cooking things like chilies, really does help bring out the spice in it.
Yeah, the big thing is vermouth is a good thing to have on hand as well, because it tends to keep a bit longer in the fridge, and it you can certainly substitute vermouth for wine in certain dishes, and sometimes it actually works better than white wines. If you use a really lousy sour white wine in your food, it's going to ruin the dish. So you have to be a bit careful. But
So Scrump, what would you say is your absolute best dish to cook?
I don't know. Probably at the moment, I'd say it's kind of the long, full day, like slow cooked bolognese, because I've been doing it with it's like stewing steak. It's got sausage in there. It's got chorizo in there. It's got pancetta in there. And it's got like veg. There's a little bit of sweet potato in when I slow cook it to make the stock that kind of dissolves in it. There's red onions, red wine. It's a very, very rich. You do it in 2 stages. You slow cook the stock, then you take the stock in a pan. You put some more fresh tomatoes in it. You put some more fresh peppers in it. It's kind of a 2-stage bolognese almost. It's a little bit rich when have every day, and then obviously you do your bits and pieces. You stir your pesto in it, you get your oregano in there, and obviously you slow cook it with some herbs in it as well. It's kind of an all day thing, but I think that really is kind of my favorite thing I make at the moment. I don't know. I used to make quite a lot of chilies, and I'd usually say that my like 17 different types of chili was the thing that I used to make a lot. That people would be, sometimes it'd be too hot for people, but generally I think people aren't used to chilies with like a proper flavor to them. They're used to, a bottle of Uncle Ben's and some limp mints. Yeah. So they're not really used to proper chilies. But I think at the moment the bolognese. I also, the day after, I had some of that stock left because I done it for 2 days and there was still some of the stock left, and I actually ended up making meatballs with it. And I made like the world's most decadent meatball, like marinara sandwiches. That was very decadent.
I'm gonna have to learn how to do this. I do need to get myself like a good bolognese recipe. I'd be quite tempted. Actually, wait, I'm going to the zoo on.
Get some Italian sausage, get some nice stewing steak, and get some pancetta and maybe a bit of chorizo.
It's difficult to get Italian sausage around here, though. Like what I've normally found is just getting some British sausage and then adding some fennel and garlic to it.
You can. That's what I did last time. I just bought some caramelized onion sausages and added some garlic and fennel, and cook it in basically red wine and get your, either if you want to do like sieve tomatoes or passata. That works as well. You don't have to be super high effort. You can just get some passata. But that's what I did. Yeah. It was, and some oregano, some thyme, bay leaf. It's your very fundamental Italian. It's herbs, it's tomatoes, it's garlic, it's meat, and it's red wine, and you put it all in there and give it some time, and it does all the work for you. Really, it's not. If you know even a little bit about cooking, it's really not rocket science, and that's kind of the thing I try and communicate to people as I don't know, not to go into too much for food rant, but a lot of it as well. People aren't taught food theory. No. Like I said, they're not taught, that you have to balance your acidity levels. They're not taught that, you have to maybe season a dish in stages, and, having fresh pepper on something is different than having pepper in something. They're not really taught that, and they're just taught, blindly to follow recipes. And that's kind of depressing, because sometimes you'll come across someone who says that they can cook and do cook, but all they really do is get ingredients in a box and read a recipe card. And that makes me kind of sad, because they're missing out on the adventure of it, of going, oh, maybe this would work. Because one of my other favorite dishes to make is actually a slow cooked pork it's like a pork and apple stew. but that's cooked in cider. That's got mustard in it. It's got apples from my mum's tree in it. Actually, it's a very nice cooking apples. But a lot of people would be a bit weirded out by having apple in a stew, but it really, really works. It's like a winter stew. It's like a mulled cider pork shoulder kind of stew thing.
It works in a curry as well.
Yes,
apple and banana.
Bananas, yes.
I think a lot of people just miss out on the joy of creating a dish or thinking of an idea and think, you know what, I will try this ingredient in this context and see if it works. And generally, if it's similar to something used before, it will. Or it won't. You'll learn something. But people, I think the biggest thing I hate about kind of Britain's lack of cooking is how afraid people are of it. They have just been tied into knots about something as simple and as fundamental as making food. And it just depresses me sometimes. But that's my rant over with.
I just want to
remember also that food is, that cuisine came about with people using what they had, on hand. And I think that is something that's also very important. Don't feel that you have to, run out and seek out, all these exotic ingredients to make a certain dish. Look at what you have on hand. Look in the fridge. Look in the cupboards. What you can buy at a market or a supermarket if you must, and make something with that and be creative about it. Yeah.
Like just before we move on, I do want to just kind of show one thing which I think kind of it is quite representative of the state of cooking in modern day Britain. I'm not sure how many people have heard of the channel Kay's Cooking on YouTube. But she's basically a woman from Sheffield who.
Just that image.
God, no, you're not. I just realized what you're bringing. The Kay's Cooking thing. Sorry, I muted and I've been like, oh God, I'm pretty sure some of this is a troll.
Like, no, it isn't. I'd really like. I mean, like, there is kind of like a whole Kay's Cooking extended universe with her son Lee, who. Like he is like basically he has his own vlog channel where he basically will film himself going to the shops and then will walk his dog to film what he has for his tea, which is usually like fish fingers, chips and beans. And then he'll film himself going to his PlayStation and then walking away from his PlayStation and then going to bed. And he'll upload these videos like weekly. But and then he also has his own Twitch channel. Like there is kind of like almost this like this deep lore involved with like the Kay's Cooking extended universe, which I think is like an untapped mine.
I used to watch Cooking with Dog, which was quite a lot of Japanese food. But then the dog died and it made me sad. So
I just wanted to play this clip. You should be able to hear sound through it.
Are you sure?
You should be. Well, I haven't pressed play yet. But like, I think that there's a line in here which I think really kind of sums up British cooking.
Got enough pepper.
No, we have. It's just forget it. Doesn't matter. I'll just put salt in it. So no, I'll put salt in it. No, I don't need pepper. We've got peppers here.
What is that? Is that mince?
Were you able to hear that?
I heard that. Yeah, I did hear that. You don't need pepper. We've got peppers here. No.
Like, so I don't know whether that came through on the stream, but basically she's cooking stuffed peppers. When she makes anything involving beef mince, she like normally she'll boil it. Like she'll boil the mince and like all the scum from the top will just kind of rise up to it, and like she doesn't even skim off the scum. Like it's kind of like served with like you have your boiled mince with scum, and you put it in the stuffed pepper.
Oh, it's got Iceland special mince as well.
Yeah. It's I mean one of her favorite ingredients to use in dishes is like your mince, which she'll just like put into a pan as like a whole slab. Like she won't break it up or anything like that. She likes using onions, which she just like she doesn't dice them or anything. They're just kind of massive chunks of onion and carrot, and beans with sausages in them. And
God.
yeah, I like there's something on the one hand, there's something kind of wholesome about it because it's she's at least kind of trying to put in some sort of effort. But I just love the line like, no, not putting in any pepper. You got enough pepper here. Just like not actually understanding the difference between like great, like black pepper and a bell pepper.
No, same thing. It's the same thing. Come on, just bigger, just bigger ones.
I just wanted to kind of highlight because I thought that would be a good way to kind of end this section because I know that there's
Thank you for bringing us out on that cursed note.
Yeah, thank you for that. No,
all this wonderful food talk in here. Here's some grey mince from Sheffield.
The other thing I'll say about this is I think a lot of people as well don't grow up with like a garden anymore, especially not like a herb garden or growing produce. And that's something that my mum did growing up. We had a herb garden, we had an apple tree, she dabbled in occasionally growing the odd vegetable. I think lacking that and a lot of people being more urbanized and actually just not having kitchens is I don't want to bring out the whole social engineering thing, but honestly, it does feel like people are being deliberately moved away from, in many ways, from self-sufficiency. I'm not coming out and saying there's a conspiracy against people cooking because it's kind of it's seen almost as like a middle class thing now, though. It's seen as it's look how fancy I am. I've got a garden and a kitchen. I don't have to live in a 1-bedroom fucking flat share, and I can do all this cooking because I have all this free time. And I think that's ruined cooking for a lot of people because they see it as something that twats do.
Yeah,
it's become a bourgeois status.
Yes,
status symbol. And that's what I was saying. That is that the whole foodie. Right. I mean, I think people sometimes, you're into cooking, you're into food, you must be a foodie. I hate those people. I absolutely hate them because I don't like this idea of this fundamental aspect of life. As I said, cooking is about community and sustenance and family and all that, and I don't like it being turned into yet another luxury commodity.
Right. Apologies for going a little bit quiet. I was about to read out the super chats, and then all the super chats in the viewer activity thing disappeared, and it just says no new super chats or members. And the thing is, a lot of people have sent in super chats.
I can still see a couple of them here.
Oh, can you? Okay, can you?
Yeah, I can read them. No, don't worry. Let me see how high up I can go here. There was someone here with 50 SEK, Friedrich, said, let me show you my favorite Chinese food. Scrolls through cat photos.
No.
We also have a £5 here from EC90. Speaking of food, I discovered something life-changing last week. Tesco has 70p canned ratatouille, and it's actually quite nice. Just heat it on the hob. That sounds a bit grim.
Can I just point out the best ratatouille I've ever had was at Disneyland Paris. They have outside the ratatouille ride in Walt Disney Studios. They have a restaurant themed on ratatouille. And you can only get kind of set menus, but if you get the premium menu, you get the premium ratatouille.
A quick on-air piece of advice, Rose. Do you have a Streamlabs?
Yes, I do.
If you log into the Streamlabs using your YouTube, it will track all your super chats.
Right. Okay. So how do I see that?
It should just be on when you sign in. Basically, there's a whole thing if you go on Streamlabs, not Stream. Yeah, obviously.
Streamlabs. Okay.
Do you have Streamlabs?
I do have Streamlabs installed on my computer.
But
I could just log into it.
Yeah, if you log into Streamlabs and look at your dashboard, it should show all your recent events, which will include super chats. But I can keep reading them. I think I've got most of them here. Rigmarole with a $2 donation saying, have you had Carolina Reapers, D? I grow them.
Oh, nice. Yes, I have had a couple of them. I mean, there's a level where the flavor takes a back seat to the heat, and I think that there's sort of on that line, where the benefits outweigh, the benefits are outweighed by the the kind of just insanity of
Yeah.
the capsaicin. So, but yeah, so I the ghost chilies tends to be the one that I it's sort of a hottest I go in regular use, because they still have quite a nice flavor of their own. But
I've actually been kind of getting into the more Caribbean. Like, have you used scorpion peppers before? Because they're really fruity. They're really nice.
Yeah, I really like the kind of fruity ones. I mean, that sort of habanero is one of my favorites because I love that sort of tropical, fruity profile. So I do tend to prefer those. I mean, I like heat. I like a good hot chili, but I prefer something that also has quite a flavor of its own. And at a certain point, you're just going to get burnt.
Yeah, you're just getting pain, and that's the thing. It's a lot of sometimes you have to go through the heat to get the flavor. But like I said, I'm quite into. I like my nagas. I like my ghost peppers. And I'm very into kind of what I refer to as like the 7 pots, which Trinidad Scorpion is kind of a member of. Those kind of very hot Caribbean peppers that aren't bred necessarily to be that hot. They're kind of bred for flavor, and that's a bit more incidental, because they do literally just grow wild in some places. It's quite amazing that you can find these ridiculously hot chilies just being grown by like mom and pop people who've been using them in their cooking for generations. It's kind of quite funny when you see that. And a lot of them do have these amazing fruity flavors. But anyway, I'll stop ranting about fruity chilies.
Okay. I think I've got things sorted on here now. Apologies if I miss out anyone's super chats. So I know that there was quite a few, but I've got Streamlabs loaded up. So I'll go through them. So the first one was from Mr. Gently Benevolent with the $2 Australian. Mr. D is also releasing an amazing cookbook. Pixel Music with the £2. Is Cammy a rare breed of seal?
Yes, she's a fairy seal.
She actually, you know what? So when she chirps and stuff, she actually does kind of sound like a baby seal at times. D's bit of rough with £2. D is the real man's choice. # transcend women. Ooh woo.
Ooh woo. D's bit of rough. D's bit of rough sends in a filthy super chat every week on AA shows.
Really, that's pretty. You've got a fan there. That's
Comic Nut 64 with the $5. Have fun with your monarchs. I'll just go check the moon for any other flags. Reed Lavity with the $2. It's not 1997, but you also lost Hong Kong there too. Yeah. Vance H with the $5. I've been following your channel for a couple of years now and really enjoy your content. Keep being awesome. Also, you have adorable cats. Well, thank you. I mean, at the moment, I only have the one, although my boyfriend did recently rescue a cat. Who's a breed is known as a ragamuffin. And his name is Winston.
Oh,
his name is Winston. And so when my boyfriend moves over here, Winston will likely be coming over as well. And then we'll be having 2 massive cats. 2 big cats. So Frederick with the 50 SEK. Let me show you my favorite Chinese food. Scroll through cat photos.
Yeah, I think we went over that.
Yeah. So I got and so I did touch on the last one we received from. So we got the one from EC90 and Rigmarole, and then finally Mr. Gently Benevolent with the $5 Australian. Thoughts on kangaroo and croc meat, Mr. D and guests. Mr. D has taken over my stream.
Yes, you have become
any good. I've become a guest on my. I have become a guest.
You've become head chef.
You're a guest. Yeah, my simps have followed me, I suppose. I have eaten both. I've actually eaten alligator. I don't think I've eaten crocodile. I did not like alligator because it just had a very weird, just slight back note of kind of pond. You know, it like
bit pondy.
It just was very, very pondy. You know,
was that like how good seafood can kind of taste like the ocean? Alligator just tastes like the swamp.
It tastes like a swamp. Yeah. No, I mean, you just had this uncomfortable kind of feeling that
bit of a Shrek flavor to it.
Yeah, I didn't fancy the alligator. I do like kangaroo, although it's not something that I would seek out. You know, it's not a go-to meat, but it's very good. Ostrich is very good though, and emu.
I have had crocodile, and what I had was these like crocodile medallions, and I didn't think it was that great if you have it by itself. It tasted like a very salty ham. But I have had it also in a restaurant in not in Soho, in Camden, called Shaka Zulu, where they were served as this like South African like potji, I think it's called. It's like crocodile and beef in it, and that was actually really nice. Kangaroo, I can take or leave. Like it's okay. But like you're right, ostrich is one of the best meats out there. Like, I absolutely love ostrich. Like ostrich makes fantastic burgers.
Yes, ostrich mince, very good. Someone in the chat said alligator tastes like swamp chicken. I think that was it. It was the combination of a very very chickeny texture, like paired with that pond flavor, and it's very off-putting. Wild duck also. It tastes terrible, absolutely awful.
I have had a wild mallard actually, and I wasn't hugely impressed with it. And I normally love duck.
Oh, I absolutely love duck, and I love game birds, but wild duck. I mean, this was in America, but no, I did not fancy that at all.
But no, you're right in like the pondy kind of taste, because that's one of the problems with wild mallard. That in itself is an acquired taste. It's still very different from like properly farmed reared ducks, which are much bigger anyway. Like if you get a mallard, it's like they're actually kind of small. That's why they're so cheap. Like if you go to a proper game place, you can get them for like £4. I paid £4 for one at Borough Market. And like when I got it, I thought it was a bargain. I was like, "Oh my god, that's so cheap!" But it's actually kind of crap.
Yeah, they're not reared properly. They're not like domesticated ducks that have been bred for meat. They're just ducks.
Yeah, it's just kind of like a
quack.
Yeah, it's just like a quack. So I've just noticed, like we've been like, I wasn't sure how long the food section of this would go on for, and so it's been like now we're kind of at the point where we would normally start to wrap up the show. And so like we still actually have 2 more seals to touch on.
We 2 more? What?
I know, right? But this is the thing, like do we talk about the spiciness of George Floyd and Luther, or do we just kind of go for our eel-based dessert? I think it has been. I mean, it started off kind of like a little bit irate, I'll admit, but we got that out of our system, and then we went into the wholesome stream. So do we want to skip the George Floyd and Luther courses and go straight to our sealy dessert?
I think so. I mean, well, George Floyd, he's dead. He died. I don't know.
Floyd.
I mean,
Mr. D's take, George Floyd.
He's dead.
He's no longer alive.
That boy dead.
But like, yeah, we got the people will tune in and hear me kind of ranting about like Tranners and be like, oh boy, this is classic Rose of Dawn, and then it's like an hour talking about chili. Which I think is great. I think, I enjoyed that. I actually like talking about wholesome things. You come out of it kind of feeling good. And like one of the things I would like is, for people to, really, if you don't already cook, embrace it. Like actually get into it and like cut out your takeaways, spend whatever money you would spend on a takeaway, use that on getting actual decent ingredients, and it will last you a lot longer, and it will be better. That's a bit of wisdom there. That's like your after school special kind of roundup.
Food.
But we So now, you ready for dessert?
We are. My body is ready.
Well, look at this.
My body is rigid.
South Walney Nature Reserve records more than 500 grey seals.
That's a lot of blubbery boys.
Look at all of those. Look at that picture there. Look at all of them. Let me zoom in.
It's a super spreader event.
All of those seals.
Don't those seals know they're going to kill seal grandma?
No, seal grandma.
He's a little seal with like curly white hair and glasses.
And sitting on a rocking chair. Knitting for baby seals. First day at school. Oh, but yeah, like that's lots. So the good seal news this week is that there are lots of seals. And I
googled seal grandma, and this is what came up.
Oh God! Are you sending it me on?
Yeah, I sent you on Discord.
Oh God! Oh,
that's a bit cursed.
Oh, this is. You can't prepare yourself for this.
It's a bit cursed.
Oh, that's just. Oh God.
Ugh.
It just.
I had to show.
Yeah. It's a bit uncanny about
that. That is yeah. That I am genuinely getting uncanny feelings from that. That is disturbing.
That's a bit creepy.
That is ridiculously creepy. So anyway, I think now is the time to vote on who gets this week's gourmet seal of approval. So I've just posted.
Yes,
I've posted the straw poll, and so is Scrumb. And so, I'm going to get rid of that image because it's really freaking me out. What I'll fish up instead is some of the tasty dishes that I've made, because I was quite proud of these.
Yours just shows the results because it's got /R on it.
Yeah.
Does it? Oh.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Oops. I'll delete mine. I can't. I can put myself in timeout.
Lol, you gotta give yourself a timeout.
Yeah, so that's my shrimp boil. This is my own recipe for a bacon cheeseburger, which I use chuck steak and rib cap, getting quite a high amount of fat in with the mince, and topping it with Gruyere cheese and smoked streaky bacon.
Bacon. Bacon's always good.
Let's see what else. This is my Schweinhaxe.
Schweinhacken.
Yeah, Schweinhaxe. Then I don't know how to pronounce it.
I like that. It's just like hacked off bit of pig, basically.
Yes. I think it's a cheap cut of meat, considering the amount that you get on it. I made it with Käsespätzle, which you can see there. It's really, really tasty. And this is my pizza.
I wish you could get like German style potato dumplings more readily over here, because I used to get them quite a lot when I was in Munich for a little bit.
Yeah, they will occasionally sell them in Lidl when they do their random German food things, which they'll do for like a week every couple of months. Yeah, this is my Chicago style deep dish pizza, where you actually put the sauce on top of the cheese and the meat. That you put the cheese on first, so you layer the bottom with cheese, then you put your meats on, and then finally top it with loads of sauce, and you put it in the oven for a good 40 minutes until basically like a crust starts to develop on the top of the sauce. And that's when
I don't know. Chicago style pizza isn't real pizza.
Oh, I think it is.
It's not real pizza.
It is real pizza. Don't you dare say it's a casserole.
It's not real pizza.
It's a casserole.
It's
like how a calzone isn't real pizza either. It's a calzone.
But
Chicago's deep dish pizza isn't. It's deep dish pizza. It's not pizza.
I would happily eat one if I was given it.
Yeah.
And this is a Cajun shepherd's pie. Which is served with a spicy beef hot sauce.
That sounds pretty good, actually.
Yeah. So I always put like a load of cheese on top of my shepherd's pies. Simply, but like mostly it's because at Europa Park they serve shepherd's pie, and like the amount of cheese on it, it basically comes out looking like a pizza, and it's epic. And
it does sound pretty epic.
I was really, really impressed with it. And so like you basically, rather than using things like carrots and stuff, within the shepherd's pie itself, you use the Holy Trinity, which is onion, green pepper, and celery. And then you add like your cayenne, your paprika, your cumin. You add some egg to kind of bind it. So the actual kind of the meat part of it almost is basically like a meatloaf, which you then top with like a buttery mash and a ridiculous amount of cheese.
Sounds a bit heart attack inducing, but it sounds pretty.
It
good.
is, but it's good. Right, so with that, is everyone ready to see who won?
Yes, let us see.
Okay, so drum roll, please. It's John D.
Ah, yes.
We won by a landslide.
What?
A landslide.
Oh, do I get a seal? Do I get my?
Oh, you get the seal. You join such names as Sophia Norwitz,
And Cammy like 4 times.
Count Dankula.
Cammy.
And
Dev, even though he wasn't on the show that time.
What a surprise!
I did keep a list of like how many people had won, and it came to a point like every single time Sophia Norwitz would come on the show, she would just seem to win by default.
She does take a lot of tear gas and riot control munitions. So.
She does.
she literally does. She's like a conflict zone reporter now.
Yeah, like if you haven't already, like follow her like her updates on like protests in Minneapolis. She's taken a lot of footage.
She got shot with non-lethal rounds like 2 nights in a row. She's kind of nuts, but she does get good shit. That's some dedication to reporting. That is some actual war zone shit.
I got another super chat from that crime guy who's formerly Teabag, but he's now going as that crime guy because that's what he does. So £2. Rose/Sue Hulk cooking collab when?
Oh,
I would do that. I would love to do that.
Yeah, I'll do a little bit of my own shilling as well because I'm streaming again tomorrow. I'm again. A lot of people seem to be moving away from a lot of the current event stuff, as am I. But I'm doing a very, very dense series about the process of democratization from 1900 to 1950. And I'm currently going to be doing part 2 tomorrow on the First World War. I don't know. It's quite political theory heavy, but a lot of people have been enjoying it. So this will be a bit less political theory heavy, but there will be a lot of say counter revisionism of the events of World War One and some stuff about history you may or may not have known. So come join us for 3 hours of talking about early 20th century geopolitics.
Yes, and Mr. D, do you have anything you would like to share?
No, I mean, if you want to come and listen to an extraordinarily autistic 4-hour discussions about, Thomas the Tank Engine and Charlie Bigum meals, then you could watch Unpopular Opinions on Academic Agents channel. Or if you want to be annoyed by modern art, then you can follow me on Twitter. But other than that, no.
Like, I'm sure there's been people who are tuned into this wondering, I thought this was like a current affairs show. Why the hell are they talking about cooking? But this is like a weekly occurrence on Popular Opinions.
Yes.
Yeah, this happens.
They're the best. I mean, these are the best sorts of shows, I think.
I think so, because you don't always want to be told about how shit things are in the world. Sometimes you need to be able to take your mind off things and, talk about the actual joys in life. Because and this is why I want to do more seal of approvals where we just kind of talk about interesting stuff as well as the occasional bit of news or just anything really. That's kind of what I would like it to do. It wouldn't be like the core focus every week, but every now and then I want to do more things like this. So with that, I think it's a good time to wrap it all up. Thanks everyone for sending in your super chats. I really appreciate it, and for everyone for tuning in. If you like episodes like this, then please let me know, and we'll definitely look at doing more of them. But otherwise, thanks to Mr. D for coming on,
and thank you for having me. I quite enjoyed it.
Great, and thanks again to my Scrump.
Yes, hello. It is I, the Scrump. Your Scrump, apparently. You keep me nice drawer and wheel me out once a week. It's good. It's good to be here, and I rather enjoy talking about food. So
yes, and so so there will be a new video coming up on my channel over the next couple of days. It's basically I've been working a lot, like actual proper day job. That which is actually what pays the bills. So gotta kind of put that first. But I'm getting a video out when I can in the next couple of days. Until then, thanks everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.